The lonely chapter is the change of environment, where the previous environment was party central, all the boys doing this, and now all of a sudden you've changed what you do and you don't necessarily have an environment of like-minded people around you. Because let's be real, most people are not doing what you're doing. How many people are starting a podcast, or starting to post on social media, or starting to actually share messages that they believe in? Not that many people. And that change of behaviour for you requires a change of environment as well.
Eoin Dobbin Catto, welcome to the journey, my friend.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here and to be on the journey with you, pardon the pun.
Nice one, man. Well, this podcast is based and it's centred on becoming the best version of ourselves. And I've tried to be as transparent in sharing my story on social media and here on my podcast for the past few months. The kind of trials and tribulations that I went on to kind of find myself a little bit. And I know there's a few parallels between my story and your story. The kind of party boy lifestyle definitely comes to mind when we touch on that sort of stuff. So I guess to start things off, man, I think it'd be great if you could give us a little introduction about who Eoin Dobbin Catto was, say, post-school, and the transformation journey he's been on to get him to where he is now.
100%, bro. I'll keep it as short and sweet as I can, because it's certainly been a journey, and it's certainly been one with lots of ups and downs. So when I came out of school, I very, very briefly went into college, which didn't last all that long at all, because honestly, I had no interest in it. I was more interested in going out, causing rack, getting in trouble, drinking, smoking, fighting, drugging, you name it, all that good carry on, which you do as a young fella. And I was certainly the young fella who did more of it than was necessary or required. Did that for quite a while, to be honest. I kind of discovered, you mentioned the party boy lifestyle. I discovered all that stuff when I was 13, 14, and I didn't really look back. And it took me a solid 10 years to kind of come out of that phase of life and decide to get my health back on track, get my prospects for the future back on track, and ultimately get back in the gym, get back to training and start my own business. So that's a very, very high level overview of what was quite a large chunk of time, but feel free to dig a little bit deeper on any of that.
Yeah, man. So I know with me anyway, I kind of had to go to a dark place, or I kind of had to go to a breaking point or a turning point before I made that change. And safe to say, I think that's the similar scenario with a lot of people. And I heard a right one from Daniel Dargan. He said, you have to touch, or you have to put your hand close to the fire to realize it burns. So I guess what I'm trying to say, was there a specific turning point for you in your journey that made you kind of just realize, I'm not going in the right direction and I want to kind of get my life back on track?
I feel like there was not one. I feel like there was many, but a couple that come to mind. One was after a 2-week bender in Malta at the Lost and Found Festival, which I'm sure you've heard of. And I think that same year, or the 18 months before, I'd been to like 11 festivals or something crazy. Gone to multiple countries, didn't see any of the country, went to the country, got off my head for a week, came home, felt sorry for myself for a week. And I remember being in the pits of depression after that 2-week festival. And I came back and just, the dopamine and serotonin receptors were fried. There was nothing left. And I remember going into Lidl or Aldi and buying a ton of healthy food and going, right, this is definitely a turning point. I also had a few other examples. I remember there was one time I had 7 detectives come in the front door of my house and pull my house apart, and I was like, this is definitely not going in the right direction. I'm at some point going to wind up in quite a bit of trouble. And so that was another turning point. And I think it was an accumulation of these kind of experiences versus just one experience. And for me, the whole kind of transformation thing didn't happen. It wasn't I made a decision one day and it happened. It was like I went from 4 or 5 days of seriously destructive behaviours and, blowing class A's and drinking and fighting and all this shit to all of a sudden that wasn't 4 or 5 days a week, it was 2 or 3 days a week, and I was in the gym a couple of times, and then all of a sudden I was in the gym like 3 or 4 days a week, and I was only doing this once a week. And then eventually it kind of just phased over where, 90% of my life now is being in the gym and being fit and healthy if I possibly can be,
Very interesting, man. Very interesting. And it's safe to say that a transformation journey as extreme as your one, it's not simple. It's no simple feat. And there's going to be a lot of setbacks, a lot of challenges to have to overcome. What was the biggest challenge off the top of your head that you had to overcome on a journey like that?
Let me first reverse the question a little bit to you, because I'm interested to see if we have the same answer. You've recently begun a transformation, right? I think from the beginning of this year is the kind of real transformation for you. What have you noticed has been difficult?
You're not allowed to ask me questions, man. For me, man, what have I noticed? It's good. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me every time Alex Hormozy says the lonely chapter. And it goes on. You don't know how long it's going to go on for. You're noticing you don't have the same interests as your friends from school, but you haven't met the people, or you haven't become close with the people that have the same interests as you yet. You haven't found your tribe yet. So I find that definitely very challenging. It definitely feels like a lonely kind of endeavor, but at the end of the day, man, I know it's gonna be all the sweeter when it does work out, for sure. Is it a similar kind of experience for you, or was it?
Totally, yeah. So the word I was going to go to was environment, and for me, what you're describing there, the lonely chapter, is the change of environment, where the previous environment was party central, all the boys doing this, and now all of a sudden you've changed what you do, and you don't necessarily have an environment of like-minded people around you. Because let's be real, most people are not doing what you're doing. How many people are starting a podcast, or starting to post on social media, or starting to actually share messages that they believe in? Not that many people. So all of a sudden you go from doing the same as everybody to doing something completely different. And, that change of behavior for you requires a change of environment as well. And normally that environment, it's not just sitting there waiting for you. You have to go out and create it. And so for me, that was probably the biggest challenge. For almost a year after I started getting into the gym, I was still partying pretty heavily. I was still getting in trouble. I was still doing a lot of dumb shit. But I was struggling to break away from it because I was still in the same environment. And so in August of 2018, I actually left Ireland and I deleted all of my social medias. I deleted my phone number. I basically wiped the slate clean, and I flew to New York. I actually flew to San Diego first and spent a few weeks there. And then I moved to New York, and I did 6 months in New York, and it was a complete change of environment. And that was my lonely chapter for sure, because I went to New York, I was working in a bar. One of my best friends was also working in the bar, but it was a busy place and we never had the same days off. So we saw each other in work, but outside of work, it was definitely a lonely chapter. And that 6-month period, I hit the gym almost every day. I got really into calisthenics. I studied a nutrition course. I made a bit of cash in New York. And to be honest, it was probably the loneliest chapter that I ever had, but it was necessary to do. And then when I came back to Ireland, I just completely changed my environment, and I started to actually create my own environment. I started a podcast, I did a PT course, I started to hang out with people who were also training, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And that's why I reversed the question to you, because I know where you are right now because I've been there. And so that change of environment, where all of a sudden you don't have what you're used to, and you don't have people around you who are supportive, and not even that people are not supportive, but they just don't get it. You know what I mean? They can't relate with you, and a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of people just don't want to change. Like, some people are just happy, and I say this in the nicest way possible, some people are just happy being average. I'm not, and I can tell that you are not either. And so you have to go through that lonely chapter, and we obviously connected, can't remember exactly when, probably close to a year ago now, or, not that far off it. And maybe a little bit less, but the fact that we have social media and stuff now, you can connect with people that are not necessarily in your immediate circle, and you can start to build that circle up as well. But yeah, that was definitely one of the challenges. There were many. I think also one thing that I did was I then swung the pendulum too far to the other side, where I actually became almost antisocial. I stopped going out. I kind of gave up everything. And, it took me 6 months to realise that also wasn't me. I'm still a bit of a wild kid at heart. I still have a wild streak. I still don't necessarily want to live by the rules. And so I kind of swung all the way in the other direction. And I'm back to a place now where I'm very, very happy with life. I'm very happy with my balance. I'm 80% of the time I'm doing things that are good for my health. I'm, training, I'm eating well. I'm basically practicing what I preach from a fitness standpoint. And the other 20% of the time I just do what I want, because life is not promised to anyone. And, at the end of the day, you have to find what's right for you. So I think that was also a challenge that came after that, was finding the balance and finding what worked for me. And that's going to be slightly different for everyone,
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's really insightful, and I can really resonate a lot with so many different things that you said. One thing that kind of comes to mind, or it sparks my interest. How long was the lonely chapter for you? Was it a matter of a year? Was it more? Because I actually listened to Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom the other day. He was doing a Q&A, and a fan asked, how long does the lonely chapter last? Because I'm in it now for a long time, and I'm not really sure how long it's going to go on. Chris Williamson, he didn't have an answer for him. He said, look, man, it's going to go on long. It might go on a lot longer than you think. But he said, it's worth every second when it does work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just by the nature of what you're doing, so if you're entrepreneurial minded, if you're starting new ventures such as podcasting, such as, posting on social media, most of these things are things that you do on your own. And so the path that you take is ultimately going to be more lonely overall. Like, no matter what stage you're at, because there's less people on that path. If you go and work in a bar or a gym, you won't be lonely because you're surrounded by people every day, right? Like, that's, if you work in an office, even if you hate the job, you probably won't be lonely because you'll have co-workers that you're shooting the shit with every day, and you might hate your life and hate the job, but you won't be lonely. And so lonely is a payoff that you accept in order to do things that are out of the ordinary and not the norm, because if they were the norm, everyone would do them. And just by sheer volume of people who do the kind of things that we do, there's less of those people on the road. Now, that being said, I certainly feel that the lonely chapter is also within your control to an extent, because it's up to you to put out feelers and find other people. And if you just sit in the lonely chapter and go, someday this will all be fine, well, maybe it will, but at the same time, you can be proactive with it. And so for me, I would say that in general, I got this wrong for the first couple of years, where I just hustled, and I had some close friends who were also hustling, but they were also lonely. You know what I mean? They were also in the lonely chapter. So even though I had friends who were doing the same thing, I still lost a lot of kind of social life. And of course, this was also during lockdown and all that. So like, that was an extra level of loneliness. And so I would say probably for like a year or probably the first 2 years, I was relatively lonely. But I wasn't upset at being lonely. I was excited. I was working on my business. I was seeing progress. But certainly in the last 2 years, I've put a lot of time into my social life, my day-to-day life, my hobbies. And that for me is more important. At one stage, I was very, very motivated by just revenue and growing the business. And I found that that is less important to me than how I actually get there. And so I think that I think there is no answer to how long the lonely chapter is, but I think you can change the lonely chapter. And I think what we're doing right now is, a good way. Obviously, it's not the same to connect with people online, but you connect with people online, you maybe meet a friend of a friend. And I think that you can shorten the lonely chapter by being proactive. I think if you just wait for the lonely chapter to end, then there is no answer to that, right? But I think it's it's a lonelier path overall, but you can make it less lonely. Right now, my social life is absolutely on fire. Like, I've never had more invites to stuff, more people wanting to do stuff with me. And it's it's because I've been proactive in making that happen. It's kind of the same as building a business, like, I treat my social life as a business. I treat my conversations with people the same way I would treat conversations with people who would potentially be a client. I'm providing value to people. I'm encouraging people to actually want to spend time with me. And then I'm going to the right places. Right now I'm recording this from a co-working office, which is just a really good place to meet people who are on similar journeys. I met one of my closest friends here in the gym. I just walked up to him and started a conversation in the gym, and he's now one of my closest friends here in Sofia. Other people who have podcasts or are doing something similar, I'm connecting them with them on social media and asking them to hang out. And so I think that the lonely chapter is only as lonely as you allow it to be.
Beautifully put, man. There's definitely a lot to dive into there and extract from all them insights you provided. You said your social life is on fire at the moment. Have you joined I know you're big into the gym. Have you joined kind of other different clubs to try and meet people, anything like that?
Not really. Not at the moment, actually. Not at all. I mean, skydiving is a big part of my life, as you know. And I met a lot of people through that, although over the last few months, because I've just moved to a new city, it's not been something I've actually had a chance to do a lot of. I've just been swamped with work and finding a new apartment and, getting residency and setting up my business and all that kind of bullshit, which is kind of annoying, but you have to do. So I haven't actually spent much time in clubs, but I'm just very conscious of making an effort to speak to people. I meet somebody new every day. That's a kind of rule. If I don't meet somebody new every day, then I start to lose. And I feel, when you're very much in the zone with work, you sometimes just forget about everyone. You walk around with your headphones in. You don't connect with the people around you in the world. But I'm just very, very social. If I'm in a coffee shop and somebody is serving me and I think they're cool, I'll have a chat with them. If I'm in the sauna and I meet somebody who's interesting, I'll have a chat with them and I'll ask for their Instagram. Everything for me is on Instagram these days. I completely live on Instagram, but it's small things. It's just practicing being social, like building the skill of being social and then adding value where you can, and people will kind of start to invite you into things. So the only place that I have joined is the co-work. And to be honest, I haven't actually met the people who I hang out. I didn't meet them here, the people that I hang out with. I met them all over. I met them in gyms, I met them in restaurants, I met them in cafes, I met them in bars, I met them online. And so it's just like gathering, you've gathered leads for a business. You know how that works. It's the same process. And you're kind of filtering by the people that are interesting, the people that, you actually want to bring into your life as well. So I think joining clubs and things that, you would share a common interest with people is a really, really good way. But you don't even need to do that. If you're just really, really social and you know what you're interested in and you know what you want. I've also joined some online communities and stuff, and then met people who, through the online community, you've kind of verified that they're similar to you, and then you connect with them. And also, since I moved out here to Sofia, like, some of my friends have moved out after me. So that's also great,
That's a lot of great practical advice. I love the way you said you're very proactive with going out and meeting people. It's something that I could definitely take on board a bit more going forward. You mentioned a bit about skydiving, and I'd just like to touch on a bit about that, because I went for the first time myself over in Sevilla in Spain, and it was just an absolute outer worldly experience. And I actually ended up meeting this out lad that said he goes skydiving in Offaly in Clonbelogue. So, in the hangar, actually, yeah. So if I have that one mad story from just going once, I can imagine how many different stories you have from all the times you've gone skydiving over the years.
Yeah, man. Believe it or not, I had a very close scrape in Clonbelow in Offaly back in September 2 years ago, where I actually had a malfunctioning parachute and a bridle entanglement, which is pretty much as bad as it gets in a skydiving sense. But just about lived to tell the tale. But I've also had a lot of great experiences in Sevilla. It's an amazing place as well. I've been there quite a few times. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, for me, like I mentioned to you, I traded some madness for some other madness. I still have a mad streak, you know. I still am just I'm not interested in doing the average, normal, everyday thing. It just doesn't excite me. And so, yeah, that's something that I've just really connected with and resonated with. And I think it gives you a serious sense of independence. It's obviously incredible to do it as a passenger and just have the experience. But when you're actually put in a position where, you know, your first ever jump as a solo skydiver is fucking terrifying, mate. It's, you know what I mean? It's you jumping out of an airplane with this backpack on, and it's up to you to save your own life before you're eating the dirt, kind of thing. And so it gives you a serious level of independence. And I think it gives you a serious ability to just trust in yourself and to have confidence in yourself and to face fear head on. And to be honest, nothing in everyday life scares me anymore. It's like, I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter what happens. Like, it doesn't matter what goes wrong. I'm just okay with that. And I think, I don't want to butcher your phrase, but I know that you have an approach that involves facing your fears, right? What's the approach?
Face your fucking fears approach.
Yeah. So like, I heard this probably on your Instagram. I was like, man, yeah, I love that. Like, I'm all about that. But also not just facing the fear. It's the process of getting better at something, you know, because I've done close to 200 skydives now. I have a coaching cert. I've put in like a lot of time and effort, and there's nothing more rewarding than seeing yourself getting better at something, like putting in time and effort. And it's a slow, painful at times, difficult, terrifying journey, but just to see yourself getting better and to also have that, I think, the inner peace that comes after you jump as well. I very much struggle to zen out, you know what I mean? I'm very much go, 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 go. And people think it's crazy, but my way of chilling out is jumping out of an airplane, because when I land on the ground safely, I just have this kind of zen-like feeling where I'm very chill, I'm very relaxed, and that kind of helps me as well. So yeah. What did you think when you did it? Are you planning to do some more in the future?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It was like I was reborn. It was just like everything was reset. Nothing mattered anymore. You know, when you're falling from 15,000 feet and just looking over the countryside in Spain, you're like, it's just a crazy experience, and I can really see myself getting into it full time, not full time, but getting more into it as I kind of get set up a bit more. But yeah, man, unreal, unreal. Love to hear it. Next, I wanted to touch on skills. So I'm a firm believer that life is a game of skills, and the more skills you can stack up, the more successful you will be in life. Like, for example, right now we're practicing communication skills. When you upload a video on Instagram, before you upload it, you have to practice your editing. That's another skill. You have to talk to the camera. Another skill. Yesterday, I did my first LinkedIn post. So I plan over the next few months, well, not next few years even, to practice my writing consistently on LinkedIn. So basically, as well as that, what's the other one Hormozy said? You pay 50K, you can learn the skills that will make you 1 million a year. But people just don't know this. So I'd like to touch on a bit about different courses that you've done down through the years to develop your skills.
100%. Bro, I have spent an absolute fortune. I calculated it for an Instagram post the other day. I've spent about 80K over the last 6 years on various courses, various mentorships. I invested pretty much everything that I made from my business early on back into skills. And you're so right. People think that, let's use that 50K example, which, you know, it's obviously a big number. And of course, 50K sounds like a cost. And people think I could never put 50K into a program. But the cost of not investing the 50K is the 950K you don't know how to make. So by not investing the 50K, it's actually costing you 950K. And it's so true. You get to a place of being able to do what other people can't by following the path of those who can. Right? Of course you can figure shit out on your own, but why would you? You either pay in time or money. So you're always going to pay. If you want a new skill, if you want to level up your business, if you want to level up your life, you have two options. You pay with time and you spend 10 years and you make all the mistakes yourself and you figure them out. And in 10 years, then you make it. Or you pay with money and you part with a chunk of money and you find out from someone who's already done the 10 years and you skip all the mistakes they made because they can guide you in the right direction and you get there in 2 years instead. And so skill acquisition is absolutely everything. Communication, podcasting obviously is a skill in itself. It's communication, but it's also, I guess, planning and preparation and organization, because you have to organize your guests. You have to understand how to set up your episodes and your audio quality and all of these things. Hopefully my audio quality is okay now as I say that, because people will be like, idiot. But you need to develop these skills, and whatever it is, sales, marketing. I mean, I'm talking from a business standpoint. So it's basically sales, marketing and delivery, delivery of your product or service and keeping people happy and being able to actually engage with people. If you don't have skills nowadays, and particularly, high income generating skills, such as the ones I mentioned, most basic skills are going to be replaced over the next 20, 30 years, right? With AI and all the other stuff that's coming. You don't need a person to make a burger at McDonald's or to serve you a coffee or any of that kind of stuff. Like, those skills are very, very replaceable. Whereas skills like communication, community building, podcasting, being able to have a deep conversation, marketing to an extent as well, because a lot of that is personal. Sales, again, these are skills these are high income, high leverage, lifelong skills that if you have these skills, it just completely changes the trajectory of your life. And no one gets successful by accident. Success is not something that happens by accident. It happens with tons of work on the right things, learning the right skills. And, I think if everyone just invested into their own skills, and I include health and fitness in that as well, because maybe it's not necessarily, I guess there's multiple skills in it, but it's also a way of life. Like, you can be as successful as you want and make all the money in the world, and if you don't have your health, I would swap all that bullshit to be fit and healthy. So I think that's the first thing, and then build your skills on top of that. But 100%, I think, again, people like yourself with a growth mindset will understand this. This will make complete sense. You will look at people who don't agree with this and go, how do they not get it? But there will still be a vast majority of the world who don't get it. And look, that's fine. At the end of the day, you need somebody to work in the shop and you need somebody to do these kind of chores. And some people are really happy doing that and they don't really need to have any skills. Maybe they're just, happy to kind of potter through life and do their thing. And that's absolutely fine. But for people like me and you, it's skill acquisition all the way. It's learning all the way. And that's what's going to force you to level up, and it's what's going to open doors.
Beautiful stuff. I feel like we could talk about this sort of stuff for hours, man. But just to kind of, I guess, finish things off for now, wrap things up a little bit. What is the goal? What is the dream? Where do you see yourself in a year's time? 3 years' time, 5 years' time, and I guess more importantly, how are you going to get there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I look at everything on a 10-year horizon now. I don't look at 1 year, 3 years, 5 years per se, because I know how long stuff takes, and I know that in 10 years, I know exactly where I want to be. So there's a lot of different stuff. I mean, there's a lot of life goals that I want to achieve. A lot of them revolve around extreme sports and extreme experience and doing things that, again, most people will never get the chance to do. And in order to do that, financial freedom is a huge goal of mine at the moment. Not having to ever worry about money, not having to ever look at the price of anything. That's a huge goal for me, and I have a number for that, and I have a roadmap to that, and I know what that looks like, and I know You know, the goal is 3 to 5 years. If I can get there in 3 to 5, amazing. But I'm very happy to be there in 10 because I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the journey. Again, I said it already, my health and fitness. You know, I am going to be 30 in September and I'm going to turn 30. I'm going to be the fittest, the fastest, the strongest, the healthiest, in the best physical shape I've been in my entire life. And I intend to keep going in that direction. Obviously, at some point, unfortunately, there may be a little bit of a reversal as we push on. But, you know, for the most part, fit, healthy, enjoying my life, having good, strong, quality relationships, and having the freedom of time and finances to enjoy them and to go and chase all those different experiences. That's really what it's all about for me. I'm more worried about how I spend my life than any specific number or anything kind of arbitrary like buying a house or buying an apartment or those kind of things. Like, for sure, they can help with my overall goal, but I don't really care about the materialist stuff. The materialist things for me are really, don't get me wrong, I will have them, but they're trophies. They're things that I will get just for the fun of it, not because I want them or desire them or need them. I'm very happy in my day-to-day life, and so that's what it looks like at the moment. More of the same.
You can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about this sort of stuff. It's inspiring to say the least. I just want to say thanks a million for coming on, man. Wish you the best of luck, and no doubts we'll be in touch. Where can people find you online?
Firstly, thanks a million for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat. And I remember when I was starting out with the podcast as well, it was always like a little bit daunting getting guests on. So fair play, because I know that it's hard to put yourself out there. And you've done a really good job, by the way. You've asked good questions. You've been a really good host, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So big shout out to you firstly, and thanks again for having me on. And yeah, where can people find me? As I said, I'm a bit of an Instagram hoe. I'm all over Instagram. So if you want me for anything fitness business related, mentorship related, you can get me at Eoin Dobbin Official. That's EoinDobbin Official. I'm sure you can drop that in the description. And for anything fitness related or want to work with me in that capacity, you can get me on Instagram at Eoin Dobbin Catto. And I'm all over the place in random spots on podcasts and Spotify and different places. But if you go to Instagram, that's probably my hub. And if you want to reach out or have a chat or ask any questions or anything like that, please do. And hopefully your listeners got some value and enjoyed the chat.
Talk soon, my friend.
Cheers, mate.